Hey, I'm James Blair.
I'm Michael Vincent.
We just bought 12 units in Upper Hutt. We're going to talk all about it.
Welcome to the show, Mike and James. Thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having us.
Tell me about this investment. So you're obviously from Auckland and you've been referring to yourself as parasites before.
Well, actually, neither of us are from Auckland.
Okay.
James is from Sydney.
Where are you from? North Shore's not a different place,
Mate, the
my guy.
Hibiscus Coast is
Based in Auckland.
Yeah, we're both based in Auckland now. And yeah, we just invested in 12 units in Upper Hutt.
Congratulations. And do you want to share a little bit about what that purchase has looked like?
Absolutely. Before we jump into that, I'm going to just share why we keep referring to ourselves as parasites. Someone online commented that we are parasites because we're investing in property in the regions.
Tell you what,
yeah.
people in the YouTube comments do not like property investors.
No, they don't. Jimmy, you want to kick it off?
Yeah, I mean, it kind of just happened. I don't want to say it kind of just happened that we bought these units. I'm a financial advisor. My job every day is to talk to people about their goals, how they want to get ahead, how they want to build the life that they want to build over time. And Mike and I have always thought we could take our relationship to the next level. Mike and I have been friends for a long time. We've been, started selling credit cards in the Westpac call center.
Selling debt, yeah.
Yeah, and it's just evolved over time. And we're like, the next logical step
It's for us to buy 12 one-bedroom units in Upper Hutt. Yeah.
Naturally.
So we were talking about it would be cool to do something like this.
Yeah.
It wasn't let's go buy 12 units and kind of just go like that extreme the first time.
As a mortgage advisor, I see a lot of these deals come across my desk every day. And the interesting point about this one was it was 12 units on 12 individual titles. Now, usually when you have a multi-unit investment, it is on one title. Sometimes it's split down the middle on two titles. This is on one. So
Makes it much easier to sell off a unit, for example.
Yeah, and also the financing costs. Because it's not one title, 12 units, you can get residential interest rates and residential treatment on the debt. So that is, up to 1% cash back, special interest rates, 5%, 5.5%, whatever they are at the time.
Because it doesn't look like 12 units on one title as an investment. It looks like 12 residential purchases.
Yeah, there's still like a treatment of it as an inline kind of sale or an inline property, which is all of it sold together or purchased together at once. So it's not viewed as 12 resi houses, but it is a lot easier to convince the bank that actually this is a residential deal, because at the end of the day, I could take them to 12 different banks, each one, and get actual residential treatment on it.
Yeah. Not that you'd bother doing that, but
Absolutely
you can.
not. Yeah.
And obviously also you can sell them off in that way as well, which means they can look at it in a different way as opposed to you having to sell them all off together or like in parts.
Yes, correct.
So what we liked about the site was, one, that we could add some value to it. They hadn't been touched in a very long time. Pretty much like we've stripped the whole things for all 12. A new carpet, new paint, interior, exterior, kitchens, bathrooms, the whole shebang.
There'll be 12 brand new units.
Yeah, and what we're doing is we're doing two, getting the work done, moving on to the next one, getting the work done, kind of shuffling through them. We started that about a month ago. We'll probably be finished in about another month. So it's a pretty quick turn around the whole thing.
We have cash flow the entire time. We've got two vacants.
Yeah, you've got some existing
tenants.
tenants.
Shuffle them along, do the next two, shuffle them along, do the next two, shuffle them along.
So do you have 10 existing tenants and then 2 vacant and then you're just rotating them through?
Yeah, correct. The reason for renovating is not just to increase the rent. This would have been cash flow positive even if we did nothing. But it is part of a strategy of doing some renovations, revaluing the property, seeing if we can get our cash back out again, and then going and doing the thing again.
But it's refreshing to hear, despite it not being your first home, just how you are looking at it as an investment and looking at actually what's the return on this, how can we grow our wealth through this property. And yes, that might be disconcerting or annoying to some that aren't into property investment, but you're also creating better accommodation and living for those tenants that are able to live there for rent.
I tell you what, if you want a real wake-up call, like when we went down on site, some of the people living in these units were retired in their 70s, and one that really hit me was we went in, she was like, my heat pump's not working. And I don't know if you've got maybe a grandma or an auntie in your life or something like that, and the first thing you go is like, show me the heat pump controller.
Yeah.
And she'd had it on cold instead of hot, and been like that for like 3 months. And then the wallpaper's falling off, the kitchens aren't very nice, all that sort of thing.
Bathrooms are leaking. I know people have an issue with property investment from an ethical perspective sometimes, but I look at this and go, well, look, we're not Mother Teresa. We're not saving the planet or anything.
Especially Michael.
Yeah, especially not me. But at the end of the day, we are providing a better quality home for these people. And what more could you want? I'm not going to kick my gran who's out of a property who's been in like the place for 25 years, you know?
Yeah, and I think the reality is some people prefer to rent. Not always the case, but some do. There's transient people that prefer to rent and they need rental options. And then there's also some that cannot afford the cost of mortgage rates and all of what comes with actually owning a property.
Yep.
So renting a quality unit is not always a bad outcome.
Yeah, I'm really proud of the work that we've done, and like the end state of the investment is going to be really good.
And obviously, with you guys being financial advisors and being in that space, the investment side of things comes naturally to you. But were there challenges with getting the lending for when purchasing together and also when purchasing, 12 units?
Mike just told me, don't worry, James, it's all going to be fine.
Yeah, yeah.
Daddy's got you.
Yeah.
Ooh. I told you, Amy.
Just as you put your arm around me as well,
Amy,
James.
I told you not to make this podcast weird.
Don't worry,
But
James.
it's
Daddy's
the
got
vibe
you.
that you two give off.
There's always going to be challenges with these style of projects, not just because it's a multi-household application, i.e. James and I, despite what it looks like, do not live together in the same house. There is always going to be things that pop up and lenders going to have an issue at the last minute. So yeah, absolutely there were issues. We have no experience in this space. Although we are financial advisors, I deal with property every day. A bank goes, cool, how the hell are you going to manage a reno on 12 units? What are you talking about? So, you've got to convince them that the plan you've got in place and the people that you're working with provide some reassurance and some security around that. There's always issues with the lending, but it was fairly straightforward for a project of this size. The other thing is you can't get pre-approval for these.
Yeah.
You can't go into the bank and go, oh, we're going to buy 12, this, something, that, give me a pre-approval.
Because it's far more circumstantial.
The costs, how long's a piece of string, basically? They're like, what are the costs? What are the rates? What are this? What are this? What are this? So, yeah, it's just a little bit tricky. And then, obviously, our construction loan is a little bit annoying as well for the renovations because you've got to basically pay out invoices. And we've had a couple of hiccups along the way with that. Just not actually the bank's fault, but yeah, just a couple of hiccups. Yeah.
And what about combining your finances together as well as co-purchasers, co-investors?
We actually don't have to for this.
Yeah.
Part of the reason this was such a good buy was that it is cash flow positive from day one. So James and I don't have to so much prove that we can jointly and severally afford all of this because actually it can basically afford the loan on its own terms plus some.
But you have to take out that loan, right?
Yeah. So we're co-borrowers on it.
On the
So
loan,
we set up a,
So they still look at it. Do you know what I mean? They still look at,
Yeah. If James and I were buying a 2-bedroom townhouse in Auckland for 850, well, it's probably a bit expensive, 3-bedroom townhouse in Auckland for 850K, it was returning 750 a week. That is not a cash flow positive investment, most likely. So the liability of the debt falls much more heavily onto James and myself's personal circumstances. That's not quite how we're looking at it in this instance.
Well, it's just got a much better rental yield than what being 12 units. But speaking of co-ownership, I did give you both a little quiz, a fun wee quiz to do before today's episode. Because if you recall, I came on your podcast, was it a couple of months ago?
Yeah.
And we spoke a little bit about that. The first question I asked is, why did you decide to purchase together?
Will we do everything together? No, to be fair, one of us on our own can't afford this. And that's probably
two of us can barely afford it.
Two of us can barely afford it. Yeah, so that's probably why we needed someone else. And the other thing is, James and I, although we're probably quite different people, have a very similar risk tolerance for what we're doing and also the advice that we're giving. We give very similar financial advice. So naturally, if there was someone who would go in it with me, it would be James.
It's fun. It's also fun to do it with someone.
You do something with your best mate. As well.
Yeah. Now,
It's a laugh.
Now, I kind of forgot to tell my wife about buying these units. I went in the doghouse for at least a good week.
Yeah.
What's the timeline? When did you tell her? After you'd bought them?
No. Wow. Okay. There was a few times where Mike and I didn't know whether we were going to commit to this or not. And I said to Hannah, I'm like, I think this might happen. And then I was like, okay, we're going to get a valuation. And in my head, valuation means
we're buying it.
We're conditional on the property.
Yeah.
Now, granted, I probably should have been a little bit clearer about it. And anyway, I wasn't that popular, so don't go make that mistake.
Of the questions that you did answer beforehand, I did ask, how many years do you think you'll hold the property for? And you both actually answered forever.
Yeah, boy.
Oh, good. Yeah.
Can I explain why forever?
Yes, you can.
So obviously it's cash flow positive now. once the rents go up, it'll be doing really well in terms of its cash position. Our plan will just be to refinance, take the cash out, be able to go do something else.
What if you lose your job and then your wife wants another 3 kids and to invest in creating her own business? Then, like, would you sell? I'm thinking like one of you makes a massive faux pas on your podcast and gets
Which
axed.
I wonder which one of us that would be.
So it gets axed, and the other is still there. You know, we're just
Are you
might not-
pitching Amy to be my new co-host? Is that what's happening right now?
There's a risk that you've taken on,
For sure.
and that risk, based on any change in circumstances, that risk could change and become more pressing. Right now, it seems fine because you guys are in the honeymoon stage. You've both put forever.
honeymoon. I can
You're
assure
finishing
you
each
we are
other.
well through the honeymoon
Yeah,
stage.
yeah. He looks at me
I mean,
differently now, Amy.
Yeah.
I don't know what else to say.
You're finishing each other's sentences, though. You both wrote forever.
Yeah.
That, you know,
I
things.
thought the question was about our relationship.
Things-
I didn't think it was about the houses.
one and the same, though. You know,
Yeah.
if the relationship breaks down, maybe the
Yeah.
investment looks different.
not
So
a bad shout.
in the instance that someone needs to sell and the other person's not in the position to buy them out, because they are on separate titles, I could go, cool, James, these are your 6, these are my 6, do what you want with them.
Yeah, so
Basically.
there is some opportunity around that, although someone might think, actually, we're going to hold this for longer, we want to hold it for longer because it's making lots of money, don't want to sell, and then there's a disagreement that occurs. So you get where I'm headed there.
I think it is a very fair point, and we see it all the time where
Yeah.
somebody wants to buy a property with somebody else. I know a sibling
Friends,
or something like that,
yeah.
and one goes into a relationship, they want the cash out, the other one doesn't want to let it go.
Yeah.
Obviously, when we're talking to clients about that stuff, people don't think about those risks.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I think the majority of the risk there comes from different age and stage. Like I see people buying with their parents, and it's their first house. It's probably their parents' first house. They're 20, their parents are 55, and I go, this is a really obvious thing that you haven't thought about here.
Yeah, I've seen people in their 50s, though, co-purchase, and then, you know, some sort of disagreement occurs. There's like
Yeah.
a weird relationship between the partners. Like I'm actually speaking about a particular
Oh,
instance.
really? Yeah.
And then, you know, it falls apart and that agreement that you once had looks differently. So
Yeah.
I'm just highlighting there's a very real risk there, boys.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
And from a debt perspective, you've both answered. So you've said 3 million. Is that for the property? And you've said 2.6 million. So you're not quite aligned here. You're not quite sure how much debt you've taken
I'm
on.
thinking about the deposits.
It's
we've
the
chucked in as well.
deposits. as
Okay,
well.
yeah.
If it's the deposits, it's 3 mil.
Because we've
Yeah.
we borrowed against our own homes, have some individual debt, and then have joint debt as well.
Yeah.
If you're talking about total asset exposure, it's 3 mil.
Yeah. And then obviously because you own homes and you've got your other debts, there's also that risk that perhaps someone can't meet repayments over here. They lapse and miss repayments over here. And then do you realise, obviously, you're both joint and severally liable for that loan. So if, you know, Mike does, God forbid, lose his job as co-host, because it's probably him that made the faux pas, then, you know, how do you actually manage? That's a very real risk, right? That actually perhaps he can't meet those repayments, you're left with them, you can't afford them, it's attached to your family home, which is also the one that your wife is invested in with you.
Yeah. We've got a plan in that situation. I've got a 2-year-old toddler, Cooper.
And
We'll
he's
just-
going to get started at work.
We'll just sell him off to the bank.
Yeah.
He's a really good example is maybe like 2 days after we owned it, apparently it rained a lot in Wellington.
Yeah.
And like there was a question whether there was still properties there or not,
Yeah.
right? So if something like that happened, we didn't have the right insurance, we didn't stuck with all the debt. That could get pretty gnarly.
Yeah.
Just so you know, the premise of this season's podcast is roast my home. So the purpose of unpacking
Got
some
it,
of this
got it.
is to actually highlight some of the
Okay.
risks of this purchase that you guys have
Cool.
made.
Yeah.
Okay,
We
cool.
know,
That would have
we
been
know why we're here.
I'm like getting on the defensive about stuff. I'm like, no, you don't understand. Like we actually, but like
There's
with
a-
that context, that makes so much more sense.
There's going to be. You guys could have prepped for the episode. These lessons come with learning, right? So it's it's to help the audience learn some of the risks that you've taken on.
cool.
So it's not just to roast you, although
Stop going so defensive,
although I'm
Michael.
enjoying it. Don't get me wrong. And the more you squirm, the more I enjoy it.
I'm like, see, it just got weird. I'm like, Annie, why do you keep roasting me on this bloody property? It's fucking great. Like, yeah.
No, I know it's a great
Okay, yeah,
investment,
yeah,
but
cool.
there's what I'm picking into, and I'm going to dive into very shortly,
Yeah.
is you guys don't have a co-owner agreement. You haven't made some of these upfront decisions, right?
Yeah.
And you have, when it comes to sell as well, you've said we won't sell. So again, overly optimistic. I'm sorry, I have to tell you, James said 50-50. So he is thinking, that
if we
shows,
sold?
yeah.
Yeah.
You said we won't sell, so I'm just saying there's a.
Well, I've said we hold it forever.
Oh, no, you said 50-50 later though. So it's
okay.
like as
Yeah,
you've gotten through the questionnaire, you've started to have doubts.
Wow, constantly. Constantly. Once again, he doesn't look at me the way he used to. And
But 50-50 on that point, there is no guarantee unless you have an agreement that it would be split 50-50
Yeah.
if you ended up in courts or mediation. So where I'm driving this conversation is the risk you guys have with this amazing investment. You've done so many things well, but the outcome isn't necessarily guaranteed because you haven't actually made these decisions and created a legal agreement. And what's worse is I came on your podcast a few months ago and we talked about co-ownership
Yeah.
agreements.
realistically, though, with the amount of leverage I have over Mike, I probably take 80% and just throw the pictures out and go, you choose.
Yeah. And this is something that we have thought about and we have started the process. Like, ideally, we would have got it done beforehand. However, like the timelines on these investments are super short because you can't get a pre-approval. So from woe to go, like
It
when we
happened
saw
quite
the deal
quickly.
to when we bought it, it was maybe like 10 days.
I don't even
Yeah.
know if we had finance when we went unconditional.
The way that it's been set out, it sounds like a great investment.
Yeah.
But there are some lessons to learn. Like if you were
Absolutely.
to do it again, it would be, how can we get a bit more prepared in advance, which might be finance too. Because if you did get stuck with that second tier lending, that's a lot to pay in. And everyone that we've had come through as well, like we've had Stevie J on today from Kiwi Bank, like everyone's shared their mistakes and everyone has them and everyone has them on every property purchase.
Yeah. The other thing, the big thing for us is James and I both work as financial advisors in the finance industry. And generally in our day-to-day lives, if you say something's going to happen on a date, it happens on that date. The building and construction industry is not the same. So that's been a learning curve for us as well. Yeah.
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 Yeah, definitely.
It's a different industry altogether, right? And there's always creep and things like that. But as you said, you did do the right thing and surround yourself with experts to sort of try and cushion that. And there's some things that you just can't know until you're doing and taking that journey. The co-ownership agreement, though, and looking into the legals, well, that's something you knew before.
Thank you, Amy.
Yeah, you're welcome.
You know from previous experience, we don't listen to instructions well, right? Can you tell us
Clearly.
that?
What's really interesting though is that you do have that awareness and you are going into, getting the legal structure to support that. And it's better late than never. The final question, which isn't quite co-ownership related, but is important with this kind of venture, is insurance. What have you guys got set up from that perspective?
Yeah, cool. So we have property insurance over all of the properties, and that insurance policy is loaded onto all of the individual titles, not one blanket policy over the top of it. And at the moment, that is all of the insurance we have on it. So that covers complete loss and protection. Once everything is finished in terms of the renovations, we will probably put some sort of landlord cover in place, where if there's a natural disaster, we'd be paid out on the rent or compensated for a loss of the rent.
Should we
Yeah.
have builder's insurance?
We have builders insurance
that's
at the
good to
moment.
know.
Yeah, you definitely want that.
We actually can't.
I just sit
start
here
that.
and look pretty. I don't.
Yeah.
I don't get involved
Yeah,
in details.
because we're in the construction phase, we have builders insurance as well.
Yeah, for sure.
Good to know. Good to know.
Cool.
Glad you guys are on the same page there. But with the insurance piece as well there, I mean, what you've talked about, landlord insurance, I think should cover you if you're kind of covering the rental compensation, because that's a really, the challenge is if that cash flow isn't there, if you
Yeah.
guys aren't able to pay it, so that if one of you did lose your job and there was no cash flow covering that, the other had the benefit of that insurance coming through.
We're also individually insured up to the eyeballs as key people in the business as well. So
Yeah.
that does help to protect that. Yeah.
Yeah,
Nice.
the income protection one is, so as part of a financial plan, we'll talk about that. And some people go to me, not really an insurance person. And I go like, what the hell does that mean? Like, you've
Checked out of the risk? Like,
Yeah,
no, it's not going to happen.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't know.
Mentally, I'm not
Sorry, mate,
interested in the
cancel.
risk.
It's not for me.
Yeah.
I think the fair thing around insurance is it does come at a cost, but you have to actually think about what's the other very real cost of that risk occurring.
Yeah.
So when you get into complicated things like this, it becomes very important to double down on insurance, obviously. What sort of tips do you have for others that are looking to get into investing in property?
Don't overthink it. Yeah.
But do your due diligence.
Sorry. Yeah. Sorry, that wasn't
like, did he learn anything?
That wasn't a really like cavalier, but like quite often James and I see the opposite. And if it comes across like we have a very laissez-faire attitude,
No, I know
towards
what
this,
you mean.
It's because we've done the due diligence on the property and we have surrounded ourselves with the right people. So actually, there's things we have to sort out. Nothing goes perfectly, but all in all, it's probably going to be fine. We see a lot of people who really overthink this stuff.
And maybe just put barriers in front of it actually getting started and moving through the due diligence and doing the steps. They go, oh, this is too much, rather than going, okay, let's take this challenge on and work through it.
Yeah, we do a lot of work with engineers, and engineers are renowned for being very smart but poor at the end of the day because they will just run spreadsheet after spreadsheet after spreadsheet and never pull the trigger. And you need to make sure that you're, educating yourself well and understanding the risks, but also understanding the cost, the opportunity cost. So if you never do anything, if you're always just like paying down debt and saving opposed to doing things smarter, there is a cost about the position you might be in the future.
Awesome. Well, the last question for you both is, if this 12-unit property investment had 12 different doorbells and those 12 different doorbells all played the same song conveniently because we don't have time for 12 answers, which
exactly
song would they play? You can both choose one each.
Yeah.
Is it going to be the same?
Katy Perry fireworks.
Oh my gosh.
I was going to go raw, but that's okay.
Oh, sorry. Oh, man.
This is how it all falls apart.
Yeah. You picked the wrong Katy Perry song to be the doorbell.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining us, guys.
Cheers.
Thanks.